Okay, well, good morning, everyone. You can't see my name because it says I'm the host, so it's European Health Management Association, but my name is Alexandra Olson. I am a project officer at EMA, and I will be the moderator for today's workshop. On behalf of the DTRIP4H project consortium, I would like to welcome you to the second workshop in our series, which aims to explore lessons learned from various research infrastructures to identify requirements that will shape the development and deployment of a trustworthy and effective decentralized digital twin environment. Before we get started, I would just like to note a few aspects related to housekeeping. First of all, this workshop will be recorded for the purposes of transcription as well as communication and dissemination. So if this is not something that you're comfortable with, you're very welcome to keep your camera off. Secondly, this is an interactive workshop, and we invite you to share your comments and thoughts using the chat function. After the interventions from our panelists, there will be a dedicated period where you can ask them questions, and someone from the EMA team can direct your questions in the chat to the panelists if it has not already been addressed. Thirdly, if you have any technical issues, you can feel free to reach out to someone at the EMA team, and we will assist you. Firstly, I would like to briefly go over our agenda over the next hour and a half. Very shortly, I will pass the floor to Pirjo Spuul, the coordinator of the DTRIP4H project, who will present the project, the decentralized digital twin environment that it will create, and the role that we hope this environment will have in strengthening the operations of research infrastructures to enhance the evolution of health research and care. After her presentation, we will have an intervention from Janaki Raman, who will present the EDITH project and the Virtual Human Twin Initiative, as well as the lessons learned that were identified throughout the development process of the EDITH project. We will then move into a presentation by Amaryllis Raouzaiou, who will present the EBRAINS research infrastructure, outlining key requirements that facilitate compatibility and interoperability with other projects and infrastructures. We will conclude our presentations with an intervention from Dr. Jens Dierkes, who will present the NFDI for Health platform and highlight aspects related to FAIR principles, access to decentralized infrastructures, and harmonized data quality. Following the presentations and interventions from our panelists, we will invite members of the audience to have an open discussion with the panelists, and we will close the workshop with a summary of conclusions and next steps. And now, without further ado, I will pass the floor to Pirjo.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Good morning. I will just share my screen. So, the presentation. Okay. Okay, I hope you can see now the big screen.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will very briefly present the project. So I see that there are some people who have already heard it, but I will keep it short just to give an overview what DTRIP4H means. So why this project was called to life was the raising EU healthcare costs and the increasing number of complex health challenges we are all facing. A lot of research is done. We are gathering a lot of data, and research infrastructures are playing a key role here, but still we are facing fragmentation, unequal access, and data interoperability barriers. So there where the digital twin technologies can come to help and transform the research infrastructures by enabling predictive, personalized, and participatory health research, as it is then promised in our project. So the project started in January 2025, will last for 48 months. And we have quite a big consortium, 26 members, and well, the budget of the project is 12 million. The project is coordinated by Tallinn University of Technology. So I am from Tallinn University of Technology. I'm actually a senior researcher there at the Department of Chemistry and Biotechnology. And our university, besides coordinating, also contributes in one of the use cases related to schizophrenia. So besides Tallinn University of Technology, there are 9 other universities and higher education institutions. Then 3 research institutes, 2 medical centers, 10 enterprises, and 1 nonprofit association. Plus, we have IRENE and IATRIS research infrastructures included. And from IATRIS side, we have both University of Helsinki node and in Portugal, the IPN node. So our project will create a decentralized health digital twin ecosystem, or DDTE, that I will be using now in the presentation. And we are using a federated approach so that open source DDTE is aligned with EU data strategy. We are using the synthetic data generation and also integrate the real world data from the use cases across research infrastructures. And our project includes 7 proof of concept use cases. 5 use cases were started from the beginning of the project, and 2 will be launched then next year when the project is halfway. And we use augmented and virtual reality-based virtual environments for learning and visualization purposes. So here on the right, you can see the presentation or schema of our project. So in the center of the project is the DDTE that is connected or connecting the research infrastructures. And these 3 nodes, as I mentioned, are listed, IRENE and 2 of the IATRIS nodes. We are using the federated services, doing the data anonymization on demand, and also creating the synthetic data. Important part of the project is the creation of the governance framework and playbook that will give the guidelines for the new, for instance, for the new research infrastructures who want to join, or for the other stakeholders. Then also we are thinking, of course, of the sustainability. So we're creating the business model for capacity building. And who would be the potential DDTE users? What we foresee are the national and regional research infrastructures, universities, hospitals, enterprises, and research and technology organizations. So as I've already mentioned several times, the federated learning is used that enable privacy-preserving model training across distributed research infrastructures. The generative AI is used to create the synthetic data, and then the augmented and virtual reality is used for visualization and interactive visual training. Then our project contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals of Europe and enhances Europe's leadership in digital health innovation. And of course, we are adhering to all principles, the FAIR principles, aligned with GDPR and so forth. During the writing of the proposal of the project, the European health data space was not there yet. So this is not included in our grant agreement, but we are also actually following the European health data space. And of course, all the different standards. So as I mentioned, we launched 5 use cases from the beginning of the project. So just very quickly, I'm not going to go into it, but what these use cases are about. The use case 1 is about the medical imaging, or creating the medical imaging environment-based digital twins. The second use case is creating a virtual reality drug combiner, so repurposing current existing drugs. Then use case 3 is assessing the inhalation exposure in urban areas, so how the air pollution is affecting the health. The use case 4 is creating the digital twins based on artificial tumor niches. And use case 5 is creating the digital twins for development, the precision treatment for schizophrenia. And what we are creating is the digital twin environment, decentralized digital twin environment, or DDTE, as mentioned. Then a novel approach for different data sets within and across research infrastructures, the synthetic data generation pipelines, we are creating the governance framework and playbook, and also the 7 use cases, so 5 that have been launched and 2 additional ones that will be launched in the middle of the project. So we have a website what you can follow, newsletters every 6 months. We have social media, you can follow us, and this is the picture of one of the consortium meetings we met in Germany in June last year. So thank you very much. That was a very quick overview of the project. So if Alexandra, you can help me to stop the sharing.
No problem. Thank you so much, Pirjo, for
Thank
your
you.
comprehensive presentation. At this time, I would like to invite our first panelist, Janaki Raman, to the floor to talk about lessons learned from the EDIT project. Janaki is a scientific officer at VPH, the Society for In Silico Medicine, and a research fellow at KU Leuven in Belgium. Janaki drives policy, regulatory science, and stakeholder engagement on in silico medicine at the VPH Scientific Society. He is passionate about transforming data into actionable knowledge, leveraging advanced computer models and digital twins in healthcare. His recent work includes EU Health Policy Thematic Network on the adoption of AI and virtual human twins that builds on the European Roadmap on digital twins. With a background in computer vision and biomedical engineering, his academic research included animal models of neurodegeneration. Janaki, the floor is yours. I believe you're muted at the moment.
Thank you very much for the broad introduction. Thank you. Nice to be here with you all. I've been with your workshops in the past and also met you on occasions at the European level, and I'm glad to join the discussions here. And I'm also glad to see my colleagues from EDIT, Amaryllis here, and possibly you are all also familiar with what Virtual Human Twin Initiative is happening. So I will try to bridge a bit of a high-level picture and leave the details of the infrastructure, possibly from my colleagues who will follow from today, and also answer any questions from our side. But before I start, I would like to acknowledge that I'm filling in to a large extent for Professor Lisbeth Harris, who is our executive director, who couldn't be here today. She had been the coordinator of the EDIT project, but we have been together in this journey, and we are now doing a lot of follow-up activities. So we will start with the big picture of how we were a few years ago, and then slowly move into the recent developments. That's how I would have staged my presentation. I'm happy to take in questions at the end if things are not clear or if some more explanation is needed. So without taking much time, I might jump into the first slide. So that we are called in as like virtual twin infrastructure at the moment because the official infrastructure has started to be built since January, but we started a few years ago as an initiative. We still remain as an initiative. So if you expect that we are going to talk as an infrastructure, it is still early days. So we are still an initiative, and I would like to paint a picture of what is the concept of this initiative and how this really is complementary to what you are doing from your research infrastructure side. But this is not a one isolated element. It's all connected because European Commission has a very ambitious framework around virtual twins, digital twins, you may call it that way, or virtual human twin, basically to focus on personalized care for the same reasons that we all outlined. Our healthcare system is quite challenged by a lot of demands, as well as the citizens and patients are looking up to solutions that solve problems not only for today, but also for the aging population and the stretched workforce. So with that ambition, so European Commission has set out the path on virtual human twins, but this is spread over multiple pillars, starting with the ecosystem. That's where the EDIT coordination support action was initiated almost 3 years ago, I would say, where we were part of the coordination along with many distinguished colleagues from across Europe, and also help coming in across the globe as well to look in and feed into the learnings that they have and also to shape this roadmap that we put out. But this was just a CSA coordinated and support action, but then it was immediately complemented by tangible initiatives from the European Commission to invest on the fundamental research to build these virtual human twin models. So these are some of the initiatives out there. And of late now, since January 2026, the official building of this public infrastructure is starting to take shape, which is led by the consortium called VHTNet. We are directly part of EDIT, but then we have a small footprint on VHTNet, where we play the scientific community outreach for the consortium and coordinate the user group interaction. So that's our connection between the current public infrastructure and EDIT. EDIT has been the starting, but then VHTNet is quite broad and it is very inclusive, and it would eventually be built with the foundation started from EDIT, but it is not restricted by that. So whatever I would show from EDIT is not what is coming out in VHTNet, is what I want to make it clear. But this is a starting foundation. But then the first year of VHTNet is completely focused on gathering the detailed user requirements. I hope some of you are already part of this user group and attending these bi-weekly meetings, which is quite intense, but there is a continuous involvement of the user group. And we expect that by end of this year, almost around September, October, there will be a consolidation of what are the specific tangible user requirements. So at this point of time, it is more the vision and the roadmap that I would try to walk through in the next 10 minutes and briefly touch upon what has been already the pathway for VHTNet. Hope this is clear for you, and I can move on. So this is my structure. So I will start with digital twins, because for some of you, if you have been in this space for a long time, then you know what we mean by digital twins. But I try to make some introductory part there. What is a digital twin and what part of those digital twins contributes towards a virtual human twin? Because the terms look similar, but it's possibly sometimes misunderstood or like seen like catch-all term. And then how EDIT CSA was written to draft a roadmap to realize that vision. And then finally, the public infrastructure, which is coming from VHTNet, is briefly touched upon. So without taking a lot of time on the definitions, digital twins, as in any sector, be it from aviation, industry, or even in healthcare, it is a no-brainer that it is a virtual representation of a physical object or a system across its life cycle. Of course, one of the unique points is digital twins are expected to be real-time data, and other sources are going to constantly feed it and update it so that we will be able to keep track of the dynamic changes and update the digital twin. While this is pretty true across the sectors, the frequency of such updates might not be so feasible as much as what you can do for an windmill or an aircraft. For healthcare, we need to be a bit pragmatic because we have a lot of variables, where of data feed points coming in to allow us to do prevention, prediction, screening, and diagnosis. But at the same time, we will like to do it personally, which means the data feed is not going to happen every minute and every day, but at different time points to update. So it may be that it's updated only once or every day. It depends on the context of use and the need, rather than a continuous sensor-based input that will update the digital twin. This is a broad understanding and acceptance from various communities working in this space. So without going too detail on the definitions, there will be a continuous interaction between the physical and the virtual world, and that the virtual world would be updated with happenings in the physical space. And digital twins are not just software and virtual representation, but sensor data, and also the middleware becomes very much part of this digital twin architecture. So digital twins might sometimes ring a bell, like as if it's an avatar of an individual. What we would like to clarify is from the community that it is not necessarily the case. It can be at the level of individual cell, tissue, organ, or a system at different scales. That's what the illustration means. Or it can be for a personalized planning of a surgery. In this case, the left appendicular occluder being tested for a specific patient hemodynamic condition and how to tailor the drug for that patient. or it can be for manufacturing. In this case, a bioreactor as shown here from Professor Girish's lab, or the entire medical facility like a hospital being in a digital twin representation where you can do a lot of simulations. So it is not just one single application. It can be one single application, and it need not be a whole avatar. It can span based on the application that you're looking into is what we will take home from here. And what is behind these digital twins is in silico technology, basically computational models, be it for physics, biology, chemistry, that you can model the physiological process or a physical process. Then how do you model them is the way the different technologies, underlying technologies of digital twins come from. If, for instance, you have a lot of data that can possibly help you model the physiological process or a physical element or the entity, then you can call it as more a data-driven approach, or typically what we often refer to as AI or machine learning approach, where you feed in a large amount of data that you hold and then try to model the process underneath it. On the other hand, sits the white box models, which is basically where we don't often have a lot of data, or that we have a rich knowledge of how these processes are modeled. For example, as you go into a CT scanner, it is very well modeled based on the laws of physics, how the radiation is propagating through a human in the scanner, and how those attenuations can be then reconverted into an image that a radiologist would look into. So this is a typical example of physics-based model where the laws of physics are very much the driving force to define the model and the digital twin of the system. So in this case, you don't need hard data, but at the same time, the reality is that we often need something in between, where a combination of data and the models that come from knowledge-based approaches is where we can survive, because often we don't have a situation where we have full understanding on the underlying process. Then data helps us, but sometimes we don't have data. Somewhere an hybrid approach is what would be the ideal feeding ground for digital twins to be built. So where are these digital twins foreseen to be used in our health system? It can be at a high level, at the population level, moving from a reactive care where patient turns up to the health system whenever they feel the need to come there, most often when the disease is onset, but often in a proactive care system. We could do a disease risk assessment at the population level, for instance, or at a personal level, and ensure that we can catch things early in time frame. So that's where a personalized digital twin or a population digital twin could be of use for us to capture early onset or early prevention scenarios. A second example is it's not just at the population level, it can be very much at the personalized level, where healthcare professionals, for instance, nurses in the ICU, could use digital twins to determine the insulin dosage for critically ill patients based on the biomolecular model of the metabolism of those patients, also support on the nutrition. So third example is around the occluder device, which is often placed in a specific anatomical location, but this requires that it is fitting to the anatomy of the individual patient. That's where you can do a lot of force simulations to determine the optimal device choice, but also know the implications of patients. Finally, last two examples, often what you saw is how a device can be used in a patient, or how the disease progression can be predicted using a digital twin. But sometimes you don't have to do that. Instead, a device by itself can also be a digital twin. In this case, an aerosol, an inhaler that needs to be modeled such that the distribution of the drug is uniform across the lung regions. So in this case, the device itself is a digital twin, not necessarily it's used by the patient, but the entire distribution of the chemicals as it should be used is something that we can model. Finally, the last example is digital twins could also be used to do clinical trial design or their augmentation, where in this case, an immune response for for vaccine development is shown here from University of Catania. So with those examples, what I would like to share is that digital twins is quite broad, and virtual human twins is a step where some of these come together, is how the EDIT CSA has envisioned it. So EDIT CSA itself is a large exercise. The first two comes from the ecosystem and roadmap. That was the core focus of the EDIT CSA. So the ecosystem is not only for building the infrastructure, but also to bring the community together and then draft together a roadmap for it. And finally, we were also looking into a public repository and a simulation platform where Amaryllis and Sabato from Unibo were ones who were leading the hands-on with that. But this was more a prototype exercise to help us think through what should be in the roadmap when we are envisioning a public infrastructure. So that's the add-on, but the first part of ecosystem and roadmap was the core focus of the EDIT CSA. But some of these collective learnings are what current infrastructure is starting to use as a first draft to start exploring the real infrastructure implementation. As I said, ecosystem of VHT is not just about the public infrastructure. What was envisioned right from the beginning at the start of the EDIT CSA is that we need a community of practice around virtual human twins, because the community of practice is one that will define the needs, but also the people who will be able to use those infrastructure. So what we had to do throughout the 2 years of EDIT CSA was continuously map the different actors involved in such an ecosystem and what are their needs, solutions, but also their value proposition. Often what we would typically try to understand is, I'll try to use my mouse here. So the typical use would be around the need, people from the hospitals who would use virtual human twins, or the users, the end patients, end users being the patients. But often it is not easy for them to just work in isolation. Rather, there has to be an entire ecosystem where the industry or the solution creators together with academia are going to validate those solutions, test those solutions, but also scale up and bring it to the infrastructures like yours, the infrastructures for data, but also computing infrastructures. Finally, we need the governing actors, which is the regulators, who would need to set the rules and facilitate the adoption of these technologies for the patients to benefit from these initiatives. So it sounds like a more obvious thing, but in practice, it was not always obvious for everyone to see that there is a role for a lot of actors in this space. As you can see, it's a detailed list, and it's even more detailed to what you could see here. And we have mapped all of these actors for different member states and find that it is important when we develop, be it at the level of an individual model or a digital twin or an infrastructure, we are cognizant of various actors that are involved in this, who might need to be coming on board, or we should also know who is the adversary out there. So for this to happen, we feel that the role of ecosystem organizations, fortunately for the organization that I come from, VPH, which is a scientific society that sits in the middle, is very important. There's also some call to action from our side, because there is a lot of effort on the technical implementation. There is a lot of push from the policy to make these things change. But at the end, it's the community actors that need to connect the dots, that technical implementation translate towards policy, and policy initiatives translate in reality to the technical implementation. And if you get an opportunity to engage with those community organizations, be it standardization organizations or scientific societies or clinical societies, it is always good, though they may not be in the first line of contact for when you build these infrastructures. So I think I should be watchful of my time. Do I have another 5 minutes, maybe, or 10 minutes?
I would say 5 minutes, if possible.
Okay, I will be fast then. Thank you. So the roadmap itself, I will be faster here. Starts from the need, but it has different parts looking into the technology stack, infrastructure, LC, and so on. And then you have list of recommendations coming through it. But often what I would like to emphasize is the need finding. It is most obvious that we need to solve the unmet needs of the clinic, but it has to also integrate into the clinical workflow. But one unique point that came through during those discussions was that industry is often very much interested to what happens in these public infrastructures. to my personal surprise, it sounds like they are often not interested because there is a lot of friction on IP, so they would not be interested. It's a public infrastructure, but on contrary to it, they are quite interested and enthusiastic, and that's something Commission also encourages us to engage with the industry as they have interest on the resources that comes to the public infrastructure, but also use these resources as a sandbox to benchmark their models or even seek these new innovations to find new collaborations. So we need to also factor that in engagement, because industry is the one that at the end of the day would scale, but also become the road to sustainability of infrastructures, because public infrastructures, in my understanding, would need to offer services to be able to sustain, and industry would be one of the potential end users there. So the VHT platform itself is envisioned as a pre-competitive setup where the models, the computational models, crawl through the data in order to make simulations. And if it requires a catalog of data resources or repositories of models, then it can take it from within the repository of VHT or go externally to other federated infrastructures. The same for the computing. It can go to the different computing infrastructures if the simulation requires computational resources, but it completely stays in a pre-competitive environment is the envisioned roadmap. Of course, where this data sits is in public repositories, as we all know, and these public repositories are anywhere but in the other infrastructures. So the VHT is not going to be duplicating the efforts of these infrastructures, rather ensuring that there is a bridge towards those public infrastructures out there. And also the commercial platforms for the reasons that I mentioned about the industry, because not all will be solved by the public infrastructure. So we should ensure that we have the existing commercial platforms from the industry are also able to be leveraged to uptake, but also feed to the public infrastructures. How did we define the user scenarios is high level, a glance into the future, which is very difficult, but we try to do it within the roadmap by writing simple perspective stories, taking patient going through and benefiting from the VHT, or a clinician using it and benefiting to plan a surgery, for example. But most often the first scenario for a research infrastructure was around how a researcher could use the infrastructure to develop and also to collaborate with other colleagues. But as I said, industry perspective is also captured where acceleration of drug development is done. And that's a unique value proposition that industry wanted to incorporate it as part of VHT realization. Finally, on the learnings in terms of open source platforms, we needed to deliver clear benefits was a big learning that we had. There are unmet needs. Of course, these are obvious cost reductions and improvement patient outcomes. But what are also important to know is the practical challenges that these innovations meet the clinical and R&D workflow. But there is also concentrated efforts needed to do capacity building to ensure that we educate and do the outreach for these people who contribute to those. For example, even for a researcher who wants to commit to share their models or a clinic to provide their data, there has to be an incentive. If there is no return of investment, it is not going to be helpful. And those return of investment need not be always monetary, but it can be predominantly around visibility for their work or progress in their research is also a valuable incentive. So the roadmap is out there. I will put the links after my session here in the chat. Finally, the last two slides on the ongoing initiative related to the VHT Net. So VHT Net is a public procurement from the European Commission, which is started in 26 and will run for next 3 to 4 years. And it is done in multiple phases. The first one is a specific contract which started in January, which is specifically developing the software product development and related services. And then this is where the user group that we are steering and where you might have been part of already, or if you are not yet, please do consider joining the user group because you have a voice there to shape, but also raise those questions that are not tackled at this point of time. And the second one, which just started last week, will focus on the legal and ethical awareness program. I wanted to flag them here because I learned there was a session last month where you looked into the LC aspects. Probably you should keep an eye on what is being coming up in this space. to feed to them, but also bridge with those developments at the EU level. And the user groups are spread out into different profiles, and different scenarios have been identified where the scenarios drive the definition of user requirements by using cross-cutting applications. And the example that I showed regarding or briefly hinted was about a multi-center validation study. So to conclude, our key learnings, and that remains the same also for VHTNet, is what we listen in when the user group come together every 2 weeks, is that interoperability is key, and we need to connect with other data infrastructures, but also we need a good governance to build the trust. Of course, often the question of sustainability is always there in the mind. How are we going to do that? Because there is quite a challenge to bring to this stage, but also it is important we already think about the sustainability. For which we think systemic policy changes has to happen, that we need to have coherence and clarity in the policy and regulations so that we just don't put the rules, but also prepare the tools to follow the rules. So with that, I would like to leave you. Sorry for being a bit longer here, and I'm happy to take questions at the end in sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janaki, for your very comprehensive and insightful presentation. It was very interesting to see the evolution and learn about these lessons that you've outlined, which will definitely help to inform our work in the future. Thank you so much. So I will now invite our second panelist, Amaryllis Raouzaiou. Amaryllis is a scientific associate at the Athena Research Center and is the Deputy Technical Coordinator of EBRAINS Research Infrastructure. Amaryllis is an electrical and computer engineer with a PhD in effective computing. She has played lead roles in numerous European and national R&D projects, including the eBrains 2.0, the Human Brain Project, and EDITH CSA, which we just heard about. Her research interests focus on advancing research infrastructures, effective computing, digital twins, and assistive technologies. Amaryllis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I hope that you can see the presentation in presentation mode. Is everything okay? Okay, great. So the presentation is about the EBRAINS research infrastructure. Nope, I cannot. Okay. It's a European infrastructure, a digital one, with 45 institutional members from 15 countries. We have a lot of users for different countries, not only from Europe, and also 11 national nodes until now, but more are expected to join in the next few years. EBRAINS is the output of the flagship project, Human Brain Project. Was a 10-year project that with neuroscientists from all around Europe. And at the beginning was just a collection, we could say, from different services and tools of the neuroscience area, but now is a research infrastructure with different tools for collaboration, with additional tools and services, and also a very strong community. So as I have already said, it's a centralized platform with some of the main services is the brain atlases and the knowledge graph that is widely used by the community, other models and tools, and also some tools that facilitate the collaboration between the neuroscientists. Now, this is more or less the structure, we could say, of the EBRAINS platform. We have the base infrastructure and sensitive data infrastructures. These are the resources that make the EBRAINS array a reality. We have a strong collaboration with data centers and HPC centers all around Europe. Some of them are, of course, partners of the EBRAINS array. We have then the next layer with the operation services. These are the services that are necessary for the for having the RI alive and working, and some services like the identity and access management or the user monitoring or even storage and compute access. Then the next layer are the core services of the RI. Apart from the collaboration environments or the user support or even the community engagement, we have also in this layer some scientific, we could say, services like the knowledge graph or the brain atlas that are among the main part of the RI. And then the next layer are the partner services. These are tools and services that are collected by the different nodes of the RI, of the different members. And also this is the layer where new services are being added, and also the layer that is collecting whatever can be useful to the neuroscience community. These services are divided in different categories. Some of them, the main ones are mentioned here, like the visualization, the pre-processing, analysis, modeling, workflows, and validation. Now, the one service I have already mentioned as a main one is the knowledge graph. Is, we could say, the repository of the EBRAINS RI. This is where all the data, all the assets of the RI are searchable and presented. The main part of the knowledge graph are datasets, but of course we have here also tools or other information, even papers that can be used by the neuroscience community. This is more or less the process we are following in order to have all these assets available for the user, for the EBRAINS user. This is the first is the submission, then there is the curation part of the process. So we have then the validation of what is submitted, the actual publishing of this in the knowledge graph, and make it available for further search by the users. This part is for the non-sensitive data and metadata, and then we have the sensitive data. This is an ongoing work, is still in progress, but this is another process. We have different sensitive data infrastructures. Some of them are part of the hospitals, and some others are part of the actual RI, and it's a way, a process we follow in order for us to tackle the sensitive data that have been submitted to the EBRAINS RI. Now, these are the different categories and access models of the knowledge graph. We have, you can see the different categories of the data. So at the beginning, we have the unreleased data, and these are the data that have been submitted, but they are not curated, so they remain unreleased. The next category is the embargoed data. This probably will be part of the free or controlled categories, but for now they have a period of time that are still under limited access, but you can access the metadata. Now we have also the non-sensitive data. The majority of them are free and can be accessed not only by EBRAINS users, but also by everyone who searches for them in the knowledge graph. And then we have the most difficult category of the data, the sensitive ones, and we have two categories there: the controlled and the restricted. So the controlled they can be accessed, but only for the authenticated users, and for the restricted data we need another step, and they can access only by the authorized users. In all these cases, the metadata, of course, apart from the first one, the unreleased data that are not yet curated, the metadata are still available for all the users. This is another important tool or service probably for the of the RI is the EBRAINS software distribution. This is something we created because there was the need to somehow tackle the different dependencies we had between the different science tools of the RI. So we had we wanted to make all the tools available to the users, integrated in the RI, and also to ensure that they can work together and in an optimal way. Also this is a tool in order to work with the workflows created by the neuroscientists. These workflows can include the tools of EBRAINS, but also other tools from outside or other processes. The EBRAINS software distribution, as I said, is a tool for dependency management. This is a reproducible software environment. It goes under extensive testing, and it has some releases more or less every 6 months, and new tools have been added in every release. So the main execution environment for the ESD, the EBRAINS software distribution, is the lab, but also there are some versions of it for the HPC side. Now, one of the main collaboration environments of EBRAINS is the collaboratory, and this is, we could say, a collection of different workspaces for researchers and developers. This is the fundamental unit of the collaboratory is the collab. Every EBRAINS user can create a collab. Is an area where he can share files, even discuss with other members, or use as the Jupyter Lab or the Drive in order to upload the files he wants. The collab can be private or public. This is something that the user can define, and also is a way to host the documentation, but also to have different access rights for the different tools, or the links to data storage and data proxy. This is the storage I mentioned before. We have the EBRAINS Drive. This can be accessed through the collab, and it's a version controlled file storage, and this is better for smaller or medium data sets, documents, and script. And we can, through the EBRAINS Drive, we can work collaboratively in different documents. And also, there is also the EBRAINS data proxy. This is an object storage for massive datasets, terabytes of datasets, and these datasets are too large in order to use the EBRAINS Drive. So this is another option for storage in EBRAINS. This is one of the workspaces of EBRAINS RI. The main one is the one used by the biggest part of the community. Is the lab. is is Jupyter Lab environment, and is a way in order to have a secure collaboration, and is integrated with EBRAINS authentication service, and also it is integrated with the drive, so the user can use the files uploaded in the drive. Now for the user support, apart from the actual user support, we have a system where the user can submit the issue and also follow the resolving of the issue or not. We have also the EBRAINS handbook. This is a collection. It's a very useful tool, not only for newcomers, but also for the old users of the EBRAINS array, where they can find the documentation and the tutorials or how-to guides. It is continuously evolving. It follows the Dierkes framework, and there are some practical steps, but also there are some further explanations about specific tools or services of EBRAINS, and a lot of reference docs. This is something that is continuously enriched, and with different sections, even for ethical reports or other parts of the array that could be useful for the users. And this is, I think, the last slide. All of this, of course, should somehow be monitored. So we created the Open Metrics framework. Is an analytics platform in order to capture, analyze, and convey the real-world performance of EBRAINS. We are monitoring the defined KPIs, and also we can monitor the time of the services or the users, the number of visitors, everything that can be relevant to the EBRAINS, to the EBRAINS array. There are different dashboards. This is the visits and unique visitors dashboard you can see here, but there are many different dashboards, diagrams that are created through this Open Metrics framework. Also different parameters that the user can define in order to see what is important for his or her tool. This is, of course, is not available to every user of EBRAINS. This is available only to the administrators of the EBRAINS array, and also part of it is relevant to every tool developer in order to have a more clear idea for his own specific tool. So the developer of a tool can see all the details that are relevant to their tool, but not the details that are relevant to the general functionality of the array. And yeah, this was more or less a quick presentation of the EBRAINS array, but I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Amaryllis. That was a very interesting presentation. And as I was looking into EBRAINS, I find it a very fascinating infrastructure, and it has such important implications when it comes to better understanding the brain. So I found that really, really, really fascinating, and to kind of see the breakdown and understand a bit better how it works on a technical level. So I'd love to ask you a bit more about that. Ensuring interoperability and seamless data sharing is a priority for the DTRIP4H project, and this will inform the development, of course, of the Decentralized Digital Twin Environment. So in this regard, I'd be interested to hear a bit more about your metadata schemas. So I know that you that eBRAINS uses the open minds metadata schemas. So I understand that these schemas are designed to support fair data principles. And so I'm interested to know if there were any other metadata schemas or standards that were considered or evaluated during the development process of eBRAINS. And if so, if there were specific key factors that kind of led to the selection of open minds over these alternatives.
Yeah, the Open Minds metadata schema was created during Human Brain Project, so it was created for the specific needs of the brain's array, or back then for the specific needs of the neuroscience community. So there was an effort to have a schema, not metadata schema, not only for the datasets, but also for other assets of the knowledge graph. They tried the team that who has created the Open Minds. They have tried to make it. To make it easily to use, but also the Open Minds can collaborate with other metadata schema that are already in place. So this was the idea behind that. In general, to reply to your question, they have assessed a lot of different schemas, and all of them were, of course, important and useful for the community, and they made an effort to make the Open Minds to create a connection between the Open Minds and the other schemas, but Open Minds are created only for the specific needs of the Human Brain Project and then of eBRAINS.
Okay, that's very interesting to learn more about what that process was like. So thank you for sharing. Another question for you is related to federated access. So the DDTE, the digital twin environment that the project will create, aims to support federated access while preserving local control. From the perspective of eBRAINS, what do you find is the right balance between a common European framework and the autonomy that your national nodes have?
Yes, this is a difficult question, not the question, but the process that we are trying to follow. The balance is not an easy one, so it's not something that we can divide 50-50. Okay, we can keep 50 centralized and 50 for the nodes. It's more what we have in every category. So let's start that by saying that in order to have a federated infrastructure, we created a modular architecture. So the idea behind the modular architecture was for every node, every member to add the tool they created, or a new service, or something that can be part of the architecture. But this was just a technical basis for the federation part. Now we are trying to keep, I think the most important part to keep it centralized are the standards and the processes that you have to follow to have the array, and also the monitoring, for example, that I have presented. This should be centralized in order to monitor the whole function of the array, and some main core services should also be centralized, that these services that are necessary for the actual technical functioning of the array. But we have to to give to the nodes and to the members the part of the innovation and the creation of new tools. So they should be feel free to submit and to contribute whatever they want and to the RI. And of course, there are some processes that they have to follow, but the part that what they want and what they need should be part of the different nodes. So I could say that we want the brains user to have a unified experience. So for the user, the RI should be something unified. One part doesn't shouldn't um, shouldn't appear as a federated part, but behind that should be a federated structure with a lot of innovation and different innovation from the different national nodes. And of course, also this is the funding part. Also, the funding can be federated and collect the funding of the different nodes or countries and members.
Thank you. I think that helps for us to gain a better understanding. I have one final question for you before we move on. So I understand that eBrains was originally the product of an EU-funded project and is now being further developed with the support of the European Commission and a network of national nodes and institutional partners. Given these developments, what would you say that success would look like for initiatives such as eBrains in 3 to 5 years' time?
Yeah, the first one is to be alive and with and updated with new tools, a lot of new members, but also new national nodes and it should has also have the capability to be alive without European funding. So the business plan and what we are trying to do is to find a way to be sustainable, of course, but with the funding of the national nodes, with in-kind contribution of the users, but also to find the ways to collect some funding from other sources like industry or users for more complicated tools or services. But on the same time, we want to have it free and available for the research community. So yeah, this is the idea. And yeah, the wishful thinking behind it. Let's hope that we are a reality.
Thank you for outlining those processes. From the side of DTRIP4H, we're focused on trying to identify sustainability pathways in the future. So this gives us an idea of what other research infrastructures are aiming for as well. So thank you so much for providing that answer. And thank you again for your presentation, Amaryllis.
Thank you for the invitation.
At this time, we're going to move to our final presentation. So I would like to invite our final panelist, Dr. Jens Dierkes, to come to the floor and to take the stage. So Jens is the Deputy Head of Research and Publication Support at the University of Cologne. His research focuses on the development of digital research infrastructures, in particular research data management. His areas of focus include co-leading of community and networking and training and education in the NFDI for Health and institutional RDM support as a member of the Cologne Competence Center for Research Data Management. Jens, you're very welcome to take the floor.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation. So as I'm trying to share my screen, you can see I'm sitting at the university library. So I'm a little bit having a different perspective than the others of you, probably. So I'm hope that you can see my screen now. Great. So I'm sitting at the university library, being member of NFDI for Health, the National Research Data Infrastructure for Personal Health Data. Our specific role as a library is actually to explore ways to really bring the services that are being developed within these infrastructure domains down to the earth, you could say, on the campus. So really getting in contact with researchers and seeing also how the communication and how the local infrastructures, support infrastructures, can also help kind of adopting the larger scale infrastructures on the campus. So my specific focus in NFDI for Health is training education. So in particular for researchers, early career researchers, and data stewards. So perhaps I might start with saying that NFDI for Health is part of a national initiative which is funded by the government and the federal states. So NFDI stands for Nationale Forschungsdateninfrastruktur, National Research Data Infrastructure. It is currently funded from 2018 to 2028 to really across the domains to develop from the scientific communities kind of data as a common good for excellence research. So that's the vision of the NFDI. And so we have like 26 consortia currently which are developing services, processes, training of the future workforce and the individual domains, and to bring these also closer together, also via so-called sections, which address cross-cutting topics. So like training or ethical, legal, social aspects, like common infrastructures, metadata, and so on and so forth. So these are, of course, of interest for everyone. And these cross-cutting or these sections which actually provide collaborative work across the domains. And the idea is to have this national infrastructure being made permanent from 28 on or 29 on, which is currently under discussion. And actually, this goes hand in hand with the NFDI being the German contribution to the ERC. So what is NFDI for Health? Or what is our mission? So our mission is to increase the value of research in epidemiology, public health, clinical trial-based medicine by making data fair. And And I think I should stress on the point that our focus is on studies and trials. So really on data that have that are the result of prospectively planned research projects. So we are not so much focusing on routine data in the clinical context. The consortium is made up by 14 partners, which are research institutions, infrastructure institutions, university medical centers, universities, and we have a number of healthcare institutions, individual and international supporters. So we have quite a strong community behind us with which we can try and also use them in use cases to actually test and implement our services. And the Leibniz Institute for Epidemiology and the ZBMed Information Center for Life Sciences are leading the initiatives. We have currently started in the second funding phase. So this is kind of characterized with consolidation of our services and really fostering the adoption of the services that we have developed. So community engagement is very strong and also increased in the second phase. So I think when you think of the data sources that we are working with, so it's studies, trials, public health surveys, and we also include, we have partners with disease registries and administrative health databases. This can give us quite a unique, or can provide quite a data uniqueness, as well as I think the data quality aspect in terms of these prospectively designed studies is a specific value of this infrastructure. Although, I mean, so the data quality is high, but the challenge is, of course, making these studies interoperable and comparable. So this is a sketch of the key ingredients of our infrastructure, of the NFDI infrastructure. So because as we are dealing with sensitive data, all the data are located in data holding organizations. So they stay where they are originating from. So the big kind of challenge is to make these studies that are being carried out and that are hosted at the data holding organizations, to make them findable and, of course, accessible and reusable. But making them at least visible is already quite a challenge. So what we've developed, or let's say our central working horse, is the Health Study Hub, which can which harvests existing databases. So we are not really so we are reusing, of course, the existing platforms where clinical or where studies are being registered and made visible. But actually, with the Health Study Hub, we are also allowing studies not just to provide basic study information, but to increase the reusability or explorability by allowing them to provide or to publish information about data collection, about the on the variable level. They can also publish instruments like questionnaires, data dictionaries, and such things alike. And this is, I think, really an important add-on, because this allows researchers and other interested parties to really better explore the studies that are existing. So the next step, of course, is in this infrastructure is if you want to get access to one study or several studies, probably distributed across several data holding organizations, then we need, of course, an access process. And there's this German portal for medical research data, where we are also part in, which is kind of trying to develop a harmonized or an aligned process of asking for access to individual data sets. So, I mean, the current practice is that you find something at a data holding organization, a data set, then you write an application for that data holding organization and ask for access, and then you have to repeat this every time you want to gain access to some data sets. So here the idea is really to have a central point where you can then request access to several data holding organizations in the future in a standardized way, so that also the use and access committees, the contracting, and so on and so forth, this will be harmonized in a future way, so that this really reduces the burden of accessing or having all these individual steps in getting access to data. Because then, of course, it depends on what you want to do with the data. then there is an interesting aspect that you can do a distributed data analysis. We are in NFTI are providing such a service with Personal Health Train or Data Shield. But this requires, of course, at the data holding organization side, some interfaces to this infrastructure. And we are helping these data holding organizations to implement, provide these interfaces for our infrastructure. And we have a number of larger DHOs in our consortium where we can actually implement this. But the future, of course, is to broaden the adoption of these services. You can see kind of a toolbox that comes with this infrastructure in the context of the FAIR principles. So we have what we call the Health Study Hub to search for studies, but we have a number of tools that can be used to make data fair. And I think that which are also quite interesting in the context of a digital twin. But I have to admit that I'm new to this to these infrastructures, to these initiatives. We haven't really weren't engaged with such infrastructures yet. But I think in terms of when we're thinking about synthetic data anonymization, also data quality tools, and in the future perspective, we also heard about the European health data space and secure processing environments, which is a topic that we're addressing now. I think these are elements where it would be very interesting to see how they could fit into these digital twin infrastructure. Because I think that's, at least for sensitive data, that's something which is also very important for you. In addition to this toolbox, we are supporting this with training. We have also kind of a knowledge base, as we have learned in the previous talk. We have guidelines, good practices, white papers that we are providing. I have one slide on that in a moment for you. But also, I think what I just said is that this integration in the wider infrastructure, at least in particular in the wider national, but also in the European infrastructure, is very, very important. And that is something that we are addressing now in the second phase of the project. In terms of secure processing environments, that we currently have a workshop or webinar series on that, is that also that we are looking at these 5 safes aspects to address these also in terms of, at least from my perspective, it would be to provide safe people in terms of training, so that really building the capacity of data stewards, of researchers to use the corresponding infrastructures and to be more knowledgeable about all the legal regulations. And I think what we've seen right now in the development and the discussions is that it's as it's on the right side, it's really rather it's kind of a balance, or you try to optimize your you want to have as much security as possible, but you don't want to lose as much information so that you cannot answer your research questions. So it's really an interesting approach that you trying to find a balance and within these different aspects of the research. And probably for the trusted research environments, one final comment on that is the safe outputs, so that there are examples where really there's a committee, that there are processes at hand which really evaluate the results in the end, so that it's not just the researcher who is responsible for that, but that there is really a distributed set of responsibilities to guarantee that the outputs are safe in the sense of that they are according to the regulations and that they are building trust. So let me finish with this slide here. This is, I think, we have the infrastructure on the one hand side, but we have the support on the other side. So that's my data steward perspective. So in the second phase now, we have really dedicated about 10 persons within the consortium, data stewards, with a service-oriented, which are working service-oriented. They are deeply embedded in the consortium, also in the different working packages that we have, but they have a strong service focus in really supporting researchers and other infrastructures via help desk training and toolbox to adopt these services and actually also to get feedback in order to increase usability and to further develop our services. And I think these data stewards, this dedicated team of data stewards will be very helpful for this second part, as they also then can connect to other data stewards more locally, maybe on the university level, for example, which then can be used as multipliers to really broaden the adoption of these services. With that, I'd like to finish. Maybe of interest, I thought I put this in very briefly about our sequence about secure processing environments in May and June and July. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and this was a very interesting presentation. I'd like to ask you some follow-up questions, but I think for the sake of time, I will turn to address an audience question quickly and then maybe come back to you. Because I see in the chat that we have a question. I believe it was directed to Janaki. The question was from Dominique and asks, in this model, where is the mindset approach for the user? It says mental health to integrate our twin model.
Yeah, not an expert on that, but I'll take a first stab at it. Thank you for the question, Dominic. I tried to get through the links that you pasted. Indeed, we think it's not technological implementation or acceptance. Rather, how are we as individuals going to engage with such a digital twin or co-create or design this digital twin? How are we prepared for that is the biggest barrier that we see. This is something my colleagues with social science and ethical expertise are the forefront of dealing with it. So I tried to skip some of those slides today with a focus on the infrastructure part, but this is part of the main story, not something that, okay, an afterthought. And this is not earned as like if we develop the technology, validate it, show that it is credible, it is going to be taken up. We think it has to be part of the conversation from the very beginning. So in the ongoing initiatives, what we try to do is situate that as the first one. So we have, in fact, a specific user group called community, which includes patients, public, and community actors to raise these questions of how are we going to ingrain these aspects while we design the platform, but also the digital twin with lived experiences of patients. How are these ingrained in the scenarios, not just to treat the disease by a clinician, but how does this really translate for the individuals? I hope I briefly touched the thing. It's an important question. We are looking into it with the right experts, but I can share more insights from the roadmap offline for you.
Thank you very much, Janaki. I'm just going to close with one final question directed to Jens. If we want data access across research infrastructures to become more routine, what are some mandatory elements or information that you think a request should include to make the assessment process easier for the data holding infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we have I can relate to the German portal for medicine. I mean, they have, as I said, that's still kind of a manual process, so that you really have to find the resource, then introduce or prepare a proposal for that. I think what they have integrated so far is of course, besides the attributes and variables that you are looking for, is something that they've developed in terms of a feasibility study. So if you can provide already some sample sizes, I think that's in the sense of the studies, of course, an important ingredient that you can provide. Of course, I think all these contracting aspects, so that you have kind of templates for contracts, for maybe also consent, for project team or competencies distribution. I think that is also important, that it's really to show, I mean, what kind of expertise you have in order to address the questions that you want to answer. I mean, that's on the level of course, if you go there as a researcher and asking for data. I'm wondering what it would be in a federated European infrastructure, so that if another research infrastructure actually wants to access data from that source, so that would be also, I think, the policies which are in place would be important. Also, the types of data and of course the again, the metadata descriptions, what kind of standards are used. That is, of course, something which would be very important. And yeah, I think in the sake of time, so that's I think elements that I would see that are important.
Thank you. That's very interesting, and I think it's a very good closure to our discussion today. So I'd like to thank each and every one of our panelists for sharing their expertise, and for all of the participants who have joined us. Your insights will contribute to the development of the governance framework for the decentralized digital twin health ecosystem. If you are interested in being involved in future events, you're welcome to join our stakeholder group. And we also have another workshop coming up, which is dedicated to research infrastructure. So you can find the information in the chat that Eva has kindly provided. And you can also find DTRIP4H on LinkedIn, X, or YouTube if you would like to follow along on our progress.